Welcome to Behind the Recipe. I'm your host, Christina Hitchcock. Join me every week as we dive into the joys of cooking, explore kitchen tips and tricks, and share delicious recipes that will inspire your next meal. So whether you're a seasoned cook or just learning your way around the stove, there's something here for everyone. Now, before we dive in, I've got something sweet to share, like literally. If you love easy, creative desserts that start with a box of cake mix, because like who really has time for scratch every time, then you need to check out my brand new site, cakemixrecipes.com. It's packed with tried and true drool-worthy recipes that are fun, fast, and totally foolproof. And it's not just sweets. I also have savory recipes made with packaged pantry staples that your family is sure to love. So go take a peek. I'll wait. Well, okay, not really. Let's dive into today's episode. Today, I'm sharing the kitchen organization habits that completely turned things around for me. These aren't fancy tricks or massive overhauls and don't require you to go to the Container Store and stock up on hundreds of dollars of bins. These are real life, practical habits that made cooking feel easier, faster, and honestly, so much more enjoyable. Let's be real. There was a time when making dinner for me felt like a true chore. I was always hunting for the right tool, digging through cluttered drawers, wasting time looking for things I knew I owned, and that constant feeling of where did I put that was exhausting. So I started making small changes, not all at once, but little by little. And over time, these became habits that completely changed how I use my kitchen. So let me break them down. But I want to back up first. When I when I was around two, like I think that's when you start talking, right? I created a word called sorganizing. And it was part sorting, part organizing. And it's something that I find myself even at the age that I'm at right now that I still like to do. I'm always sorting and organizing, and my brain just works in that way. I'm always looking for ways to make a process more streamlined and easier. So when I started implementing these changes in my kitchen, it really streamlined things. And when you streamline things and you have the right tools, doing the job is so much easier. So, the first habit that I employed is everything in my kitchen has a home. And I know this might sound basic, but it's really where the magic starts. If something doesn't have a set space, it kind of floats around and becomes clutter. My clutter item is mail and piles of paper. And it's one of those things that I'm always moving from place to place to place because I haven't found a designated home for it yet. But when you have that designated home for everything, your measuring spoons, your tongs, your plastic wrap, everything, it really becomes easier. And once I got everything sorted out, I stopped wasting time searching, and cooking became smoother because I wasn't frustrated before I even started. So, quick tip for this is you can use drawer organizers for utensils and containers for lids. So, take an old Tupperware container and use that to store the lids for your containers. And even for drawer organizers, if you don't want to go out and buy plastic organizers, you can cut the bottom off of boxes, so cereal boxes or anything like that, and put them in your drawers. They make really handy organizers. And remember to keep like items together because that's going to save you so much mental energy when you don't have to think where things are. The second habit I have put in place is to declutter regularly. I have a reminder on my calendar about every 3 months or so to go through my drawers and cabinets. And if I haven't used it since the last clean out, it goes. I've really gotten better with this as I've gotten older. I think when I was younger, I had more hoarding tendencies and I felt like I needed a lot of things because I think when I first started cooking, I didn't have a lot of the things. So it was like a habit that I built to acquire the things. Now I'm in that phase where I can be a little more judicious about what I'm getting rid of. So we all have that gadget, that we swore we would use. For me, it was like the pineapple chopper, right? That pineapple core peeler dicer thing. I bought it at a Pampered Chef party. Never used it ever. So I let it go. right? I'm not losing anything because I never really used it, but I'm gaining the space and the sanity because that thing was big and it took up a lot of space in my drawers. So I want you to think like that. Are there things you're not using? Just the other day, I was in one of my drawers where I keep a lot of my baking things, and there was a bowl in there. First of all, let me back this up a little bit. I was so frustrated because every time I go to close that drawer, my plunger measuring cup, which I absolutely love and have several of because I use them all the time, every time I close a drawer, the plunger measuring cup would gum things up and the drawer would get stuck. And I would get so frustrated and so aggravated. And when I opened that drawer the last time and, that plunger measuring cup caused the problem, I looked down in there and I'm like, the problem wasn't the measuring cup because I use that. But what I wasn't using was the bowl that was underneath the measuring cup. And that was taking up a lot of space. And I looked at it and I'm like, when is the last time I really used this? And I have another one that's pretty similar to it, so I don't need the second one. Out it went. So I'm trying to employ more of that. And this is definitely a work in progress for me, but it was big. I also freed up a ton of cabinet space by getting rid of all of the plastic reusable water containers, or why can't I think of the name of them now? With the straws that we have, I call them adult sippy cups. It seems like everywhere you go, somebody is giving you away one of those for free. And a lot of times you're taking them, or my son's bringing them home, and you're not even thinking about it. And I just take them and I put them up in the cabinet, and I open this one cabinet, and my husband, my husband has a very lovely term for it. It's called a crap-a-lanch. So when you open up the cabinet and all the junk falls out on you, it was that cabinet. I opened it up and like literally one of those sippy cups fell out on him when I opened it. And he's like, "Oh, this, like, we have to go through these." I'm like, "Yes, I know we do." I said, "But let me show you my dirty secret." And I went to the cabinet above the cooktop and I opened that, and he's like, "Oh my God." The whole cabinet was full of them. So that is my project for this weekend, is I am cleaning that out and getting rid of, I'm going to say, about 75% of them. Like, because let's face it, we only use like the one or two old standbys. Those I'll keep, the rest of them are going. Habit number 3 was huge for me, and that is having prep zones. And they're really a game changer. And what I did was I created zones in my kitchen, one for baking, one for prepping dinners, one for coffee, and everything needed for that task lives in that zone. So, for example, in my baking zone, I have my flour, my sugar, my measuring cups, my mixer, all in one spot. So I'm not running back and forth all over the place, pulling gadgets and gizmos and ingredients out from all over the kitchen. It's all in one spot. So here's how I did that. When we renovated our kitchen, and we were when we did the renovation, it was part of an addition that we built. We were living in a different house at the time, and we were preparing to move. So I got the plans from the builder of the kitchen, and I literally went through and measured and labeled everything on the plans. So every cabinet, every drawer had a letter associated with it, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever, all the way around. And then I went through my kitchen, and as I packed up the boxes from my old kitchen, I packed them as to where they were going in the new kitchen. So, like, if it was in my baking zone, that was labeled A, and everything that was going in the baking zone and in that area, I laid them out on the table, measured to make sure everything would fit, got put in a box, labeled A. So then when I had to unpack, I literally put the A box into the A drawer, the B box into the B drawer, the C box into the C drawer. Now I know we all don't have the luxury of, working like that. But what I did was, a few years after that, I helped my mom, who was reorganizing her kitchen, do something very similar. We literally pulled everything out and we set up the zone. So where does she like to prep dinner? Where does she like to clean up dinner? Right? When you're cleaning up dinner, you need your food wraps, your storage containers, spatulas, things like that, all in one spot. So it makes it easier for you when you're doing that. Where does she make her coffee in the morning? Because there you want to have like your coffee and your filters and, your pods or whatever gadgets and gizmos and tools that you need for making or doing that chore, that task should be in that spot. My cutting boards are right underneath my knife drawer. So I try to think in an organized way so that I can prep in one area, clean up in another, make the coffee in another. And it works regardless the size of your kitchen. If you have a small kitchen, maybe the left of this particular counter is for prepping, the right is where you're going to clean up. Just putting all of that stuff in that area where you're going to be doing that task makes it so much easier. Habit number 4 is having clear counters gives you a clear mind. So the fewer things I keep out, the more focused I feel. I tend to get very overwhelmed when I see a lot of things out on my counter. All right. And this happens a lot as a food blogger, right? I'm doing a lot of cooking videos, recipe testing, things like that. So one whole section of my counter is just for ingredients that are for the blog. And my family has learned you can't touch anything on that part of the counter because it's going to be used in a blog, some sort of blog content creation, and they can't eat it. So I like to put everything over there. But that drives me nuts when I look at my kitchen counters at night and I see all that clutter on there. There are a couple of things I leave out, such as, like the coffee maker and toaster. We use those every day. And it would be silly to put those away. I would spend more energy pulling it out and putting it away than it's the frustration is worth. But before I go to bed, I try to do a quick sweep and go through and clear off the counters, wipe them down, and set myself up for a fresh start the next day. It does make things so much easier for me. And once I get the handle on the paper clutter, I think I'm going to be rocking that. But I still have a couple of things to fix there. Habit number 5 is I keep a running inventory all the time because I would always forget what I had in the freezer or the pantry, which meant I was constantly buying more of the same thing because I always forgot that I had XYZ already. But now I keep either in the Notepad app on my phone. I used to keep it pinned to the refrigerator. My freezer inventory list would be in there. I had a shopping list on there, but now I'm doing everything digital. I'm using a tool called AnyList, and this way we all have it on our phone. So regardless of who's out where, they have access to the shopping list. They have access to what's in our freezer, what's in our pantry. I keep it all there. It's fast, it's simple. If we use something from the freezer or pantry, I can just go in and quickly check it off. Super easy. And it lets me keep my grocery list accurate and helps me meal plan better because I know what I have on hand and what I need to use. Habit number 6, label like a pro. I love my label maker. Ask anybody who knows me. I love to pull that thing out, and I'm always looking for an excuse to label things. It's really one of my favorite tools. I label bins and baskets and jars so everybody knows where things go. Um, I have found in my pantry what works for me. I know at the beginning of this episode, I said you don't need to buy all the fancy bins, but I did transfer many of our dry goods into plastic containers with tight locking lids, just because it made it so much easier for me to find things. As a food blogger, I have to have many different things, right? I have white rice, brown rice, sushi rice, arborio rice. I have like 5 different kinds of rices. If I have all those different size packages in there, it takes up a lot more space than if I just have it all in the same size packaging. So in that case, I do have special containers. Same thing with pastas. But what I do is I label the boxes or the containers. And I don't just label the one side facing out. I put labels on all 4 sides. So it didn't matter how I put it away. I could just put it back in the container or back in the pantry cabinet, and it didn't matter what way it was in there. I always saw the label. And then to the lid of the label, I affixed the preparation instructions, right? So spaghetti has to boil for, I don't know, what is it, 6, 7 minutes. So I just literally cut that part off the box, put it on top. So I knew the cooking instructions and it's all already there. Same thing with the rice. So I am a label fanatic. I am also the person that after a while, if my labels are looking dingy, I'm going to pull them off and relabel. But that's usually one of those things that when I'm feeling frustrated, makes me feel calm. So I know how I am as a person, and I'm one of those weirdos that likes to do that kind of stuff. So that makes me calmer doing that. One of my favorite drawers in my kitchen is my spice drawer. And when you open it up, you just see matching jars with all the pretty spices in them. They're all labeled the same. That kind of stuff makes me happy. But right now, the way things are labeled, everybody can find stuff. Oh, here's a tip for you. So some of my baking ingredients are in my baking drawer, right? The one I talked about with those plunger measuring cups before. So I have my sugar, my brown sugar, my flour there. So instead of putting the labels on the four sides, these are in a drawer. I put the label on the top of the container because I'm looking down at it. It makes it easier for me to easily see what I'm using. And many of these containers I was able to get at the dollar store. I got these great little storage jars for the drawer below my baking drawer, which is where I keep like my chocolate chips and craisins and all those different things. So I got a bunch of those, and that way I get rid of all those messy packages and put them all in there. It keeps them fresher longer. But again, I labeled those on the top. Habit number 7, I make cleanup part of the process. And this is one of those things that you see the celebrity chefs do if you watch the cooking channel. You notice they never really have a messy workspace because they clean as they go. And this was a big shift for me, cleaning as you cook. I used to end when I first started cooking and I would be preparing meals, I had a mountain of dishes and everything left at the end. And let's face it, if you're cooking a big meal, you're exhausted by the time you've cooked and prepared and, sat down and ate. The last thing you want to do is go back into the kitchen and tackle a big pile of dishes. So this is one of those things I learned to do out of necessity because as a food blogger, I make a lot of dirty dishes when I'm doing a video day. If you're not familiar, when I shoot videos for my YouTube channel, a lot of times I'm doing 7 recipes in a day. And many of those recipes I have to do more than once so that we don't have to sit and wait for something to cook or bake. I can just pull an already prepared one out. So if I'm making a cake, I have double the dishes to do that cake recipe for my YouTube channel. So this is one of those things that kind of came out of necessity. So as I'm putting the dishes in the sink, I'm not just piling them up by the sink, I'm actually organizing them in my sink. So bowls get nested together, silverware is all in one spot. I usually have one big bowl with soapy water that I'm putting in all my spatulas and my whisks and all of that stuff. And then if I can, if it's just as easy for me to put it in the dishwasher versus the sink, I always try to do that. So this way I'm not dreading the aftermath of what I've done and I have things cleaned as I go. So think about it. As you're making dinner, can you have like a container of hot soapy water set there where you can just start putting utensils in and, stack your dishes neatly in the sink so when it comes time to load the dishwasher, they just line up so much easier and you can get them stacked so much faster. It makes a world of difference. Okay, habit number 8. Use your vertical space. So walls, the inside of cabinet drawers, even the sides of your refrigerator. These are all places where I added storage. Hanging hooks for oven mitts, magnetic strips for knives are great options. Over the door racks for cutting boards or your plastic wraps. Cleaning utensils, things like that. Even if your kitchen is small, you probably have more usable space than you think if you use those flat surfaces. In fact, I have a project teed up for my husband when he gets some free time. For the one side of our refrigerator, I want him to build this little cabinet where we can keep all of that paper clutter I was talking about. So now this is going to end up on his to-do list. It's coming off mine, is going on to his. But I try to use all those different spaces as much as I can. And even if you have to rig some shelves up in your cabinet so that you can easily get stuff higher in the cabinet so you're not wasting, you don't have any dead space. Boy, if you're not watching this on YouTube, my hands are going like crazy here. Where you can use that vertical space and make sure that your space is filled. Habit number 9 is store items based on frequency. So the things that you use every day need to be in easy to reach spots. And those less used items can go higher or deeper in your cabinets. So I'm very lucky in my kitchen. I have 2 Lazy Susans. So when you open that cabinet, the things I use all the time are right there where I don't even have to turn the Lazy Susan. And things that I don't use as frequently are lower or in the back. So thinking about how often you use things can really help with this. Same thing with my pots and pans. I keep my favorite skillet, and we all have that, right? We all have our favorite skillet and our favorite pot. But I keep those right on the top so that I can easily get at them. But the roasting pan, yeah, that can live on top of the shelf in the laundry room. That's fine. I don't need that all the time. It doesn't need to be taking up primo space in my kitchen. If you're only using it once a year or periodically when you entertain, maybe get that, especially if you have a smaller cooking space, cooking area, maybe move some of those items into a more storage-based system. Okay, and our final habit here is I do a weekly tidy up, right? Every Sunday, I like to take 10 or 15 minutes to kind of reset my kitchen. It's not a deep clean, just a quick once over to make sure that everything's back in its place, all the dishes are put away, anything that's been sitting out for the week has gotten back to where it needs to be. It's really like hitting a reset button. So that way, when Monday rolls around and the chaos starts again for the week, I'm not starting it off in a place of chaos. I have everything is where it should be. So these habits didn't just organize my kitchen, they made me feel calm when I'm cooking. And it made cooking even fun again. And when your kitchen works with you instead of against you, everything changes. You can whip up a meal without feeling frazzled or dreading the cleanup afterwards. And if you're listening to this and thinking, my kitchen is a disaster, don't stress. Just pick one of these habits that I talked about and start there. You don't have to do it all at once. One small change can make a big difference, and then just slowly incorporate the others that work for you. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Behind the Recipe. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and picked up a few tips to try in your kitchen. If you love this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. And I'd love to hear from you. So send your questions, feedback, and recipe ideas over to me at itisakeeper.com/BTR. And of course, don't forget to check out my new website, cakemixrecipes.com. It's full of easy recipes made with prepackaged mixes and pantry staples. Until next time, happy cooking, and remember, everything's better when shared in the kitchen.